First and foremost, you'll have to excuse my voice throughout this video as I recently got sick and I just can't seem to shift it, but I'm hoping that talking about EverQuest will take the edge off. To those of you that aren't familiar with me or my channel, you may find it useful to know that this whole venture of mine into EverQuest and Norath is a completely new thing for me. In fact, up until a few days ago, I had not even so much as loaded up the game's client, let alone step foot in the actual game itself. Now, whilst my experience of EQ has been limited, what I can tell you is the game was without a doubt a huge part of the world around me whilst I was growing up as a child, even if it was mainly indirectly. You see, EverQuest's success isn't strictly just down to its own merit and gameplay loop. There is no denying that what EverQuest brought to the table was unique and adored by thousands, but they also had the wind behind their sails from another large contributing gust of momentum, and that was the age of the internet. At the time of EverQuest's launch, internet usage had reached millions of homes, and I mean hundreds of millions. People were finally starting to come to terms with just how powerful of a tool the internet really was. I mean, Y2K aside, and that's for a very different video. It was during this dot-com boom, so to speak, that many people started to realize the socialization potential of the internet, and more importantly, the potential of what the internet could bring to their hobbies, specifically video games. Many video game developers were keen to bring their previously household-bound titles onto the World Wide Web for many to enjoy, and it just so happened that EverQuest would hit the market and target audience with perfect precision. EQ had so much success that during my school years, you would overhear teachers talking about the world of Norath when they're in the playground, groundskeepers discussing which camps they were going to farm for which mobs. Hell, even my parents' friends would talk about it when they came around, saying, and I quote, "It's the best thing they've ever seen." Now, even though I did not have access to the game at this time, it wouldn't stop me from coming to terms with the fact that this game is far more than just a game. This was a world within a world, a place that people can create a digital extension of themselves, leaving all of their real world woes behind and ultimately lose themselves in a world they actually wanted to be a part of. A place that people could come to just hang out. At the time, it really was the world's prettiest chat room. You see, whilst EverQuest really does offer some fantastic dungeon and raid content, none of this would matter without the influence of socialization within the game. EverQuest, as I've come to understand the more I play, is a solid game solo, at least nowadays. That is, if we're referring to the live servers. But where the game really comes to life is absolutely in group social settings, where for every action there is a reaction, for every buff there's a debuff, for every risk there is often a reward, but at times there is also demise. These in-game dynamics really brought the truly invested players of EverQuest closer and closer with each interaction, as more often than not, your life was in somebody else's hands. Whether that be relying on your support to mez incoming mobs, your healer to ultimately heal you, your tank to hold aggro, or, well, your DPS to stop eating Cheetos and actually focus on what's going on. Now, of course, whilst people would converse whilst in battle and socialize that way, I really love an aspect of EQ's social opportunity that often gets swept under the rug, and this normally comes out once the battle is actually done. You see, once the pull is complete and you're all safe, many classes will take to resting or sitting down to recoup some lost mana and health. Now, this might not seem much, but during this time, unknowingly, it would force people into a window of opportunity to chat about in-game stuff or just generally shoot the shit. You've got to think, back then there was no brain rot TikTok to scroll through between pulls. People weren't distracted by mediocre things around them. During this time, you would get to know your party some more, whether they were a bunch of randoms or part of your regular guild. You would discuss topics like the next pull, when the next raid night might be, discuss even in-game lore with each other. And that leads me firmly to my next segment, which is the lore of EverQuest. I must state, whilst I don't know enough about it yet to fully categorize every part of the world and why things exist, I have found that watching videos on the lore of EverQuest is absolutely one of my favorite pastimes. A highlight for me is learning about the Scars of Velius, which are 3 deep gouges in the land created, to my understanding, by the claws of a dragon known as Vishan, or perhaps learning about the lore of the prismatic dragon, which was born out of forbidden coupling with 2 different elemental dragons. With a game as old as EverQuest, it is no shock that there is a dense richness when it comes to lore that you can just soak in at every single turn. Every city has its demons, every dungeon has its grueling history. For every king and queen, there is an ill-fated twist in their reign. The developers of EverQuest really understood that lore is going to be such an anchor in the heart of doting fans that will ultimately keep them around. After all, it's difficult to want to leave a world that you're so hopelessly attached to. With that being said, I need to stop myself as I feel my words can go on relentlessly, but for now, I'm glad to say that EverQuest is now something I've finally taken the time to experience. It's better late than never. As for me, EverQuest does not just represent the pioneering of a genre, but it also represents the memories which we will look back on forever, and we'll look back on those memories incredibly fondly, whether you were there or whether you were just a part of it externally. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this sort of video, please do consider leaving a like rating and subscribing for more content just like this. And with all that said, I'll see you in the next one.